UFC 310 had some of the best performances of the entire year, but also some of the most questionable fucking decisions also of the entire year. I mean, on paper, this is one of the best pay-per-view cards of the entire year, and in some regards, it did live up to the hype, and it did deliver. Don't get me wrong, there were some elite, high-level performances and some entertaining moments, but dude, some of these questionable decisions on the judges' fucking scorecards, and we talk about it all the time, dude. We've been talking about it, for the past couple years especially, but just to cap it off this way, final pay-per-view of the year, Volkov, one of the worst robberies of the year, Sterling arguably got robbed, Randy Brown arguably got robbed, so it's just, we're still doing this shit, but the main thing we're here to fucking talk about today is book fights to make after UFC 310. We got a lot of them. There was 14 fights total on UFC 310, and we're going to be making 11 matchups today, covering some of the fighters all the way from Chase Hooper on the early prelims to, of course, Alexandre Pantoja and Asakura in the main event. So starting off with the co-main, Shavkat Rakhmonov and Belal Muhammad. I'm not going to touch too much about this one because this fight was literally canon before. It was already announced at one point. We know obviously it's next. That was clearly the high stakes that were heavily implied and stated for the co-main event with Shavkat versus Ian Garry. We all know that the winner was going to fight Belal next. I mean, there was a bit of lack of aura when he came into the cage after, and Joe Rogan, who's a fucking fan of Belal, even cooked him. He's like, security doesn't even know he's the champ. I'm like, dude, Rogan just had a team kill right there. You know what I mean? But still, this is a great fight, and it's going to be easy to get a lot of people excited for it, but I do think that Shavkat lost a bit of momentum and lost a bit of aura in this fight against Ian Garry, which is weird to say because he won. And I don't even think that I don't even think the fact that Ian Garry made it so competitive is what brings down Shavkat's aura. I just think it's the fact that when you're comparing the matchup of Belal now to Shavkat in your head comparatively to before you saw what you just saw those 25 minutes against Ian Garry, you're like, holy shit, there are some problems that Belal can cause for Shavkat. And like, this is what I've been saying, dude. I've been saying for the past few months that I think that Belal is going to beat Shavkat. Now, maybe I'm going to change my prediction because obviously, Belal is getting a bit older. The 35-year-old curse, he beat it once, but beating it twice is a whole other fucking thing, I guess. So we're going to find out. It's a great fight. We all know that this is going to be next. Probably sometime in like April, May, or June. Belal is relatively already healthy. I believe he's already back training, so we're going to get this fight. It's great to have a real number one contender, and all due respect to Ian Garry. So, yeah, Gary's stock just rose a lot after tonight, but it also, Shavkat, even though he won, it went down a bit. But still, this is a super exciting fight, and going on to Ian Garry up next, since we're fucking talking about him anyways. He had a great performance, and I say you got to give him Leon Edwards next. I mean, Leon Edwards has openly said that he wants to be on the main event for the UFC London card, the fight night for March 22nd, I believe. Sometime late March it is. And I say this is perfect. I mean, you got Leon from the UK, you got Ian Garry from Ireland. Ian Garry is an active as fuck fighter, He's no stranger to having a 3 or 4 month turnaround. I mean, he fought 3 or 4 times this year, 3 or 4 times last year, which is part of why, I don't really fuck with the guy, but I'm glad that he's finally been getting some respect as of late, especially after this fight against Shavkat, because he fights all contenders and he's active as shit, He's not straying away, and I really can appreciate that. I feel like we need a little bit more of that from some certain guys, and especially in some certain divisions, So, Ian Garry, man, it's not going to be like Khalil Roundtree, one of those situations where, you just got to like give him a rank or two higher. Like, give this guy a big opportunity up next. He clearly went out and deserved it. I mean, if Shavkat really is the boogeyman and the true next number one contender, which I think is totally fucking fair to say, obviously that was the whole point of the co-main, and Ian Garry's a high caliber opponent, then give him Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards in his own right, former champion, looking to get back in the win column. He's on home soil, and Ian Garry is a perfect test for him. Going to be ranked number 6 or 7, depends how next week's fight goes with Buckley and Covington, but is this going to be the most exciting fight? No, but I think matchmaking wise, it makes sense. I think we're going to see a lot of good striking on display. I mean, both these guys are really clean on the feet. They're really quick strikers. They're precise, and they're both good defensive grapplers. But the thing is, they're not too much of the type to go after it and initiate it offensively. So I think this fight's pretty much just going to be a battle on the feet for 25 minutes. But I like that. You know what I mean? It's a striker versus striker matchup. It's high stakes. The winner of this isn't going to get a title shot or anything crazy, but it clearly puts you a lot closer to the title than farther away from it. Like this fight for Leon, like this fight for Ian Garry, and it makes sense timeline-wise. Ian Garry's going to have no problem. I mean, he didn't really take too much damage in the fight against Shavkat. Like, yeah, he lost, but he did get the 2 rounds off him, and sadly the fight didn't really live up to our expectations. I feel like we wanted. I mean, it wasn't the worst fight in the world, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't call it boring, but especially in that 5th round when Garry almost had him, but it definitely just did not live up to the expectations and to the hype. And I mean, I was saying in my predictions, which by the way, I did well. I went 11-3, so it was pretty good, but I did say in my predictions that I did think that Shavkat was going to win via decision. This was going to be his first decision, and everyone was going to say after, like, oh, respect to Garry, man, taking him to the distance and showing him who's who, and like, it's going to be interesting to see how Edwards bounces back. I definitely think the fact that he's competing in the UK is going to help him confidence-wise, momentum-wise, but Ian Garry, man, he's still fucking dangerous, and he doesn't care about the booze or home soil or any of that bullshit, so I'm gonna be leaning with Ian Garry for this fight. I think it's the one to make next, and it's competitive for both guys. So moving on up next to one half of the main event, Kai Asakura. This one might be, I don't want to say controversial, but disagreed with, so let me know what y'all think, but let's book this guy against Charles Johnson, okay? I feel like, did he perform badly against Pantoja? No, but it wasn't great. I mean, and naturally, it's not his fault. You know, Asakura is primarily a striker. He's an explosive one at that. And we did see hints and glimpses at it. You know, he had a couple good moments, but overall, I mean, Pantoja kind of just overwhelmed him on the ground, even rocked him on the feet in the first round. So it was a good win for Pantoja, but Asakura, a good moment or two is not enough to, like, be like, all right, let's just keep feeding this guy, guys, in, like, the top 5 and shit like that. Like, I think Charles Johnson, he's on a 4-fight win streak right now. It makes sense. He's ranked number 12. Asakura versus a guy ranked number 12. It's a good gauge to see where he's at. You know, I know some people are talking about matching him up against like Manel Kape. Some people are saying like an Alex Perez, and I think that's totally fair. But Charles Johnson, in my opinion, Charles Johnson is a guy who's ranked low enough and does have enough holes in his game where I think it's a winnable fight for Asakura, and it's a way for him to show that like, okay, I can beat someone who has a good winning streak, a good respectable winning streak going in the UFC, who's kind of like in that 10 to 15 range in the rankings. Like, that'd be a good win for Asakura, you know? And with Charles Johnson, it's a way to get his 4-fight winning streak up to 5 by beating a guy who just fought for the fucking title. And again, was it the best performance, but it's still now Asakura is kind of like a name who put himself out there and he's going to be recognizable. So it's Charles Johnson getting the opportunity to fight him, you know, especially if these guys do a fight night in Japan like they're talking about, you know, so that could be a good matchup. I like this fight. I think it'd be really entertaining on the feet. I want to see Asakura go against a guy who's not Pantoja level, you know, we're not just throwing to the fucking wolves. I get it, former Rising champ. I mean, Asakura clearly is good. He has good highlights. And I think we're going to see some exciting fights from him in the flyweight division. It's nice to have a new contender, and clearly this guy wants to have aura, you know, he's trying. I think the whole translation thing kind of holds him back, unfortunately, and we saw some moments like that at the press conference and all that, but it's a good addition to have to the flyweight division, and if there's any division besides like heavyweight that needs someone like this, it is flyweight. So Asakura versus Johnson, it's a good fight between these two strikers, and I think it makes sense for both guys. So moving on up next to Movsar Evloev. Who are we going to give him up next? Because I thought that Sterling won the fight 2-1, but honestly, in retrospect, I do get it. I don't think it's like as crazy of a robbery as the one we're going to talk about later with Volkov and Gane. I think you can give the fight to Evloev, and it's not like the craziest thing in the world. You know, I personally, again, thought it was Sterling. I think a lot of people had Sterling, but this is where we're at. Let's run it back with Evloev and Lopez too. You know, this is the rematch we obviously all knew after that fight took place the first time, and seeing the trajectory that Lopez is on and Evloev's on, like, we all knew eventually these guys were going to run it back. Maybe the belt's going to be in the line. Maybe it's a situation where it's a number 1 contender fight. Maybe these guys, who the fuck knows what happens, but this is the situation. This is the timeline. This is the next number 1 contender fight. It makes clear as day fucking sense. Okay, they already fought once, but it was short notice for Lopez, so there's a storyline here. Like, both these guys have wanted this rematch ever since it went down the first time for each their own reasons, and it's a great fight. It was a super entertaining one the first time. It's a good fight to have to build up a nice pay-per-view. It's high stakes. We're gonna see high level grappling, and Sterling, you know, gave Evloev a lot of problems in the grappling. I think that Evloev, the reason that he ended up winning the fight in the judges' scorecards is because he got the better of the striking exchanges against Sterling, but we're going to see how that goes against a guy like Lopez. You know, Lopez has dangerous grappling, and he has dangerous striking. He has dangerous power, cardio, speed, relentlessness, Valium, everything. So, and he's young as well. So seeing a guy like Evloev now, where this is not a late notice fight, you know, Lopez is still an active as fuck fighter, but let's see it with the full camp, you know? Give this guy even like fucking 4 weeks, you know? I mean, for him, that's basically a full camp, you know? Seeing what he did this year. But dude, this is a great fight, and it's a rematch that makes a lot of sense, and it is the clear number 1 contender fight. Like, on paper or whatever the fuck, in reality, I guess I should say, Topuria versus Lopez is the fight that I think and a lot of people think should happen next. We're not getting it, y'all. We're getting Topuria versus Volk 2 in Spain, most likely. There's nothing we can do. So let's book this fight. All right, you have Evloev, who has a good argument to be number 1 contender. You have Lopez, who has a good argument to be number 1 contender. So thank God that we're finally fixing this whole logjam problem in this damn division. You know what I mean? So this is the next number 1 contender fight. It's probably going to be a really good one at that. These guys, it's going to be interesting to see if they're really evenly matched or who's going to get the better of who in what regards, and it's a great fight. It's going to be high paced, and I love it when you have this guy who have Lopez, who's on a great mean streak, and Evloev, who's an undefeated fighter who's also rising the ranks. Like, let's get these guys young and hungry, and it's a clear, like, let's find out who's undeniable kind of thing, you know? I love it because we're just handing out a bunch of random ass title shots as of late, so solidifying number 1 contenders like this is great. So book this fight. fight next. And moving on up next to Vicente Luque. He's back, man. He's back in the fucking win column, and it's crazy to see, dude. I was saying in the build up to this, like, if there's a live dog to go with other than Volkov, I think that it is Luque, man. Like, I ended up going with Garimbo, but still, Garimbo got rocked in the first minute of the fight and then taken out via sub, but at least he has the house. All right, shout out to The Rock for that one. But still, man, it's brutal because I know Garimbo's like a good guy, seems like a chill dude, so it is tough to kind of see him put out like that. But still, man, Luque, he's a big fan favorite, and seeing this resurgence from him, he's not that old of a fighter, so there is time for him to get a few more wins, man, and kind of like regain his stock, gain a lot of momentum back. So this was a great win for him, and he absolutely, again, rocked Garimbo and took him out via sub, so it was a great win for him. Got to show a lot of skills in the short minute that the fight lasted. And thank the Lord for all that is holy that Nick Diaz did not step in the cage tonight, man. All right, thank God that he did not fight Vicente Luque, because it would have been an absolute fucking butchering. And speaking of butchering, I swear that this is not an on-purpose transition, but Bryan Battle, dude, all right, who also fought, of course, against Randy Brown. And let's talk about that fight really quick, because Vicente Luque versus Bryan Battle, this is the fight that I think should be made next. But in terms of Bryan Battle versus Randy Brown, I mean, I thought that Randy Brown won the fight. Thought Randy Brown had it 2-1. I get it. It's not the craziest decision in the world. Like, it's not that wild of a robbery. Like, yeah, I disagree with it. And this is coming from me, y'all. Y'all heard me in the build-up. Like, I am a Bryan Battle fan. He's one of my favorite kind of prospects on the rise right now. Like, I really fuck with the guy's personality, interviews, fight style. Like, I can rock with Bryan Battle. And I had money on him. He was in 3 of my parlays. But I'm telling you, I still thought Randy Brown won the fight 2-1. I get it, because Brett Battle was the one that was kind of smothering him against the fence, and it looked like he was kind of doing a lot of dictating where the fight goes, but there was just no damage really at all, and Randy Brown got it in good strikes when these guys were going in on the feet, Battle absolutely just lost the first round. So after that, I think he noticed, like, okay, I got to get the fuck going, because if Brown just keeps piecing me up for these next 2, I'm losing this fight. So, to see the adjustments made from Battle, I guess you could say is impressive, and I can respect it, and to see Battle continue the win streak, selfishly as a fan, I like to see it, but I do think that he lost the fight, or I don't even know what you do with it. It was just a pretty bizarre one, and it was a bit of a letdown, man. Like, I think a lot of people were really excited for this one. I thought it was like the sleeper of the card, the dark horse of the card. It was going to be a banger, but it really just, second and third rounds were just a bit slow, man. I mean, not that it wasn't just the worst fight in the world, but I feel like the bar was set kind of high and it didn't live up to it. That's what I'm saying about on this card, man. Like, some of these high highs, like the co-main or like the Bryan Battle fight against Randy Brown, like, they didn't really live up exactly to the hype. I mean, you could argue that Sterling, this is serious, all right, and tell me if this is mental to me or not. You could argue that Sterling versus Evloev is a more entertaining fight than both of the fights I just said. And like, it's crazy to say, and all due respect to Sterling and Evloev, because they got the fuck after it and they actually made it an entertaining fight, high level grappling, which was great to see. But Bryan Battle, man, and Randy Brown, they get the fuck after it. So to see this fight go this way, I don't know. But Vicente Luque, there's so many dangerous. Let's talk about these guys fighting each other now, okay? So they both fought in the same night, so timeline wise and when they could fight next year, it would make perfect sense, because they should be around that same range to get the fuck after it. And when I'm looking at the top 15, I think Luque loses to most of these guys. I just think the division is getting too sharp, too elite right now. I mean, even these up-and-coming prospects, man, Michael Morales, Carlos Prats, JDM, Sean Brady, Shavkat, like, they're absolutely fucking killers. And even, like, the grizzled vets of the division, like, you got Edwards, who's been around for a while, Usman, Covington, you got guys like MVP. Like, I just don't know who Luque is really going to beat in the top 15. I think even guys like Jeff Neal, like, I do think he is on the weaker side of things in terms of the rankings. Not that Luque is a bad fighter by any means, and again, this was a great win for him, but I'm not feeling confident putting him against most of these guys, or really any of them, Keeping that into account, when you look at Bryan Battle, who's putting together a good win streak, yeah, this wasn't the best win, but you got to give him somebody in the rankings next, okay? Because he's racking up too many wins. All right, these are solid names that are lingering outside the rankings, that 20 to 30 range that are good to have. And he's piling up, for the most part, finishes. And again, I don't want to let the stain. I think this is just the Randy Brown fight is just going to be one of those, like, kind of stains on the win streak. I think he's going to keep racking up wins. Like, I think if these two were to fight, it'd be a great fight. It could be very explosive. These guys are both finishers, and we could be in for a war. They're both well-rounded fighters. But this is a winnable fight for Luque. This is a winnable fight for Bryan Battle. These guys, like I just said, are both well-rounded, so we're going to see fun exchanges on the feet. They could both crack each other, so it's going to be entertaining to see, and I think it makes sense because it gives Luque a chance to get another win from a guy who's really dangerous. And he has a lot of wins building up right now, and he's outside the rankings. So yeah, I say book this fight. It's a great fight to have maybe as like a feature prelim or just something nice to have on the main card to kind of get fans hyped up, because it'll be a fun one for sure. Hopefully. That's what I said about Randy Brown and Bryan Battle, dude, so I don't fucking know. So moving on up next, though, what do you do with Joshua Van, right? I say you give him Manel Cobb, man. I say you give him Manel Cobb next. Joshua Van, welcome to the rankings, man. I mean, definitely one of my favorite prospects, so to see him get this win over Cody Durden, not only did it win me some money, man, but it was just nice. It was just nice to see, you know. I'm big on the Joshua Van hype train. Just the highest output and volume striker in the UFC. I know that he doesn't have too many fights yet, but he's building them up, man. I mean, last night alone, I don't know if he broke a record or some shit like that, but he had like 170, 80 significant strikes in those 3 rounds against Durden. He absolutely battered him. Durden had a good first round, and he got a few takedowns in, but Joshua Van, man, just completely adjusted in that second and third round, you know, completely upped the strikes, upped the urgency, you know, the takedown defense looked fantastic, and he wasn't giving Durden an inch, and he absolutely just pieced him up and did not allow the fight to be taken to the ground. So he won that fight a clear 29-28. It was a great win for Joshua Van, and now he is in the rankings. Chanel's going to be booted out, so Durden can still remain in the top 15. You know, again, did win the first round, so not like an awful, embarrassing performance. But Joshua Van, man, I mean, this guy, people forget, man, he's fucking good. And Manel Cobb, whether he beats Bruno Silva next week at Tampa or he loses, I still say you give him Manel Cobb. You know, Cobb's ranked, I think, number 9 right now. Silva's 12, so even if Silva wins, Cobb will get bumped down a spot or 2. I still think this is the fight to make, again, whether Cobb wins or loses. Manel Cobb, though, man, it's going to be super exciting to see him come back at Tampa. I mean, this guy, personality-wise, it's one of the most intriguing at flyweight, and Manel Cobb on a mic, and just, he can get fans behind him, you know. It just, he just has these problems outside the cage, doesn't fight too much, and I feel like that holds him back. The inactivity, you know, I feel like he could be kind of a lot more well-known or be a little bit higher up the ranks. And again, sometimes it's not his fault, you know what I mean? But there's pullouts and shit like that, I get it, but I don't know, dude. And the fight against Muhammad Mokaev, Manel Cobb was getting some good wins before that, but it's just unfortunate because Mokaev, he smudged him, you know? He's fucking gone now. You don't got to worry about you don't got to worry about that. So I think this is a nice fight to have for a nice flyweight scrap. I think these are 2 guys who are going to want to stand and bang. I think it'd be a cool back and forth decision between these 2. Yeah, I think both these guys are entertaining in their own right, and I say match them up against each other. It makes sense. I'm glad to have Cobb finally kind of start fighting relatively active again, you know? So even though the Mokaev loss kind of was a smidge, it was unfortunate to see just for fucking everybody, you know, but it is what it is. He's back. He's trying to fight more. I say book this fight for like first or second quarter of 2025. Moving on up next to Dominick Reyes. I mean, dude, he is fucking back, and we love to see it, dude. 2-0 in 2024 for Dominick Reyes, man. So I get that the Anthony Smith fight, it was depressing, dude. It was, because the whole build-up, you know, I'm not an Anthony Smith fan. In some regards, I just can't stand this guy's takes, you know, but at the end of the day, guy's a human, and it does suck to see the loss that he had, man. And just this whole build-up, the whole, like, 30 minutes around this fight, it was sad, man, because we're all hyped for Dominick Reyes, and we're excited to see him back, and, you know, I think a lot of us saw the knockout win coming, and, I mean, Dominick Reyes, he was on like 5 of my parlays from last night, so I was happy as shit, and seeing Reyes get back in the win column after all the adversities went through, it's been great. But just Anthony Smith, man, when he just was taking like those 10 shots in a row, you know, and then stuck the little tongue out the end, then you find out afterwards he's saying like, I just want to be able to feel something. It's sad, dude. So it was a pretty sad fight. Fun outcome for the fans and for Reyes. And again, it's good. We can finally start giving him some top 10 matchups and not just have to worry about him getting absolutely fucking butchered. But that's why I think giving Volk and Ozdemir, I think it's a matchup that makes sense. Ozdemir, I know, just is coming off a loss to Carlos Oberg. But, like, it's not like he got battered in that fight, you know? That was kind of a fun little back and forth. Ozdemir won a round or 2. Some people thought he won the fight. I wouldn't go that far. I say he just took a round, but Ozdemir had good moments, and like, yeah, he's kind of getting up there more and more in age every year that goes by, but he just had a great knockout win over Johnny Walker a fight ago, you know, and like Ozdemir is kind of one of those guys that can win 1 or 2 and then lose 1 or 2, but the point is that like, he's clearly still in it, you know, he still has power behind those hands, he can still look crisp on the feet. This clearly isn't a fight that I could see going to the ground, so I think we're going to be seeing a knockout from either one of these guys going in this one, you know. I think it's a winnable fight for Ozdemir, and he could defend his top 10 spot. and get back in the win column. And for Reyes, it's a winnable fight, gets him into the top 8, and gets him to a 3-fight win streak. Dominick Reyes, baby, over a former title challenger. So these guys are both former title challengers, actually. So you know what? I think this is a good fight. It makes sense. I think we're in for a knockout, and it's winnable for both guys. So moving on up next to Chase Hooper, who had a great win. And I'm telling y'all, man, hop on this Chase Hooper hype train, all right? Because now I think he's got the 3 or 4 wins. So he's building them up. And Clay Guida was his biggest win yet, made it look easy in there. I know that they had the past experience with the grappling match before, but who gives a fuck, dude? Chase Hooper, man, the striking, it's getting so much better, and I just think the move to lightweight was so good for him. He's putting on great wins. His ground and pound and his grappling are just getting close to a very elite level, man, and it's amazing to see, I know that Clay Guida is prone to submissions in his career, but still, man, it's a recognizable name, and he's keeping the win streak going, and his striking is improving, and just overall, man, this is a good prospect to invest in, and I say give him Matt Frevola next. There's a few matchups you can kind of do with Chase Hooper. It's kind of hard to book him because, do you want to give him somebody in the rankings yet? It's kind of hard to, seeing how stacked it is. What are you going to give him, a Paddy Pimblett or Benoit Saint-Denis? You could. I think that's totally fair, but I think even a Grant Dawson would be a fun matchup, but Grant Dawson's already booked. I say give him Matt Frevola. I was also thinking, maybe you could do, a Drew Dober, maybe a Faraz Siam. I think those would also be good matchups, but when you're looking at Matt Frevola, I know he lost his last 2, but you know what? Frevola is a guy with some power, and I think that he's gotten knocked out in his last 2, and Hooper's a guy that I think with his new latent skills, I think has the ability to knock him out, but I don't think it's going to be a super big threat for Frevola. So I think that's going to be making this a bit more of a fun fight. I think we would see a good back and forth kind of war between these two. If it gets to the ground, I think Hooper's going to have the clear advantage. And on the feet, we're going to see some fun back and forth. I think Frevola is a good next step up in competition. I think it makes sense. Again, there are a lot of matchups you can give to Chase Hooper, and it makes it really fun, because he's a guy right now who's kind of just lingering outside the rankings. So you can give him people of all sorts of matchups, strikers, grapplers, inside the rankings, outside the rankings, winning skids, losing skids. So Chase Hooper, man, love the improvements he's been making. And I think Matt Frevola is a fight that makes sense. So moving on up next to, hey man, everybody's favorite flat earther. All right, Bryce Mitchell, who are you going to give him next? I see that some people are saying give him Sterling, and I don't have Sterling in this video because I was looking at the rankings, man, and it was hard for me to figure out what to do with Sterling, so I just didn't include him. So let me know what you guys think below. I'm very curious. But dude, Bryce Mitchell, I say give him Giga Chikadze next. Okay, Giga Chikadze is coming off the loss to Arnold Allen. This is a winnable fight for both these guys. Giga Chikadze, not the most well-known fighter, but he's a crisp kickboxer, and I think that this would be an interesting kind of clash of styles between Chikadze's crisp kickboxing versus Mitchell. Mitchell's striking is solid. Don't get me wrong, but just seeing what he's going to do to impose his will on the ground and overwhelm him with the grappling, kind of drown him in there. It's going to be interesting to see. And this is a guy, Chikadze is ranked number 12, Mitchell's ranked number 13, so I think it makes sense. I would have liked to see Mitchell face somebody kind of just more relative in competition, more than a Chrome fucking Gracie in the first place, but I get it, man. He had one of the most devastating knockouts in UFC history, except he was on the other end last year, so I get wanting to take the time off, come back, get a winnable fight. Not that Mitchell doesn't have fucking confidence. I'm sure he knows he could beat most or all these guys, but the thing is, man, I'm just saying, I think this is a fight that makes sense. It's a clash between a classic grappler and a classic striker, so makes sense rankings wise as well. Again, you could do Sterling versus Mitchell, and I think that totally makes sense. I see that's what a lot of people have been saying, but I don't know. I say book this fight sometime second or first quarter of 2025. So moving on up next to Kennedy Nzechukwu. Who do you give him next? Because now he's got a 2-fight win streak going, and the move to heavyweight, of course, is a good one. And like a lot of people have been saying lately, man, there's so many light heavyweights that if you just move up to heavyweight, I get it, you can kind of be rocked or kind of be chinny, most notably like Johnny Walker. So why move up to heavyweight when they hit harder? But dude, your chin will be better at heavyweight, and skill wise, you're not going to be caught as much maybe by these guys because you're going to have the speed and the skills, to be able to hold your own. And I think that Kennedy Nzechukwu made the right move. So give him somebody. I was trying to look for somebody that's kind of outside the rankings to kind of give him, or maybe a 14 or 15, but I don't want to give him a Shamil Gaziev or a Mick Parkin. So, and there's really the lack of depth in heavyweight is so fucking evident. So there's not really anyone outside of it I saw that was too intriguing to give it to him. So give him Marcos Rogerio de Lima. I mean, this is somebody who makes sense just to kind of give Nzechukwu a chance at that top 15 for heavyweight. And if de Lima wins, then obviously, it'd be a nice win for him. De Lima's a solid fighter, so I think it'll be a good test for Nzechukwu to see if he can really hang with the top 15 or not. I mean, we just saw Tybura expose Denitz a couple weeks ago, but even though I think De Lima is solid, heavyweight is heavyweight, and I don't think any of those guys in the 10 to 15 range rankings are super relatively impressive, you know. And for De Lima, you know, we've seen him be rocked in the past, so we're going to be able to see if he's going to be able to get a knockout or vice versa. So I say book this fight up next. Moving on up next to Alexandre Pantoja, of course, flyweight champion, main eventer from last night. Who do you give this fucking guy next? I mean, it's tough, man. It's tough. I got two faces on the screen. I think you do Kara France or Royval. I personally say you do Kara France just because this is what commentary was saying too. Like, Kara France is one of the only ones he hasn't had to have a rematch with yet. So that's just the level we're at right now with Pantoja, dude. So I say have Kara France and Pantoja run it back. I think it seems like a kind of clear win for Pantoja, but of course Kara France always has the chance to kind of crack him and take him out of there. But still, Royval, you could argue, deserves a title shot as well, but I just think because he's already fought Pantoja more, it's going to be harder to get excited for that fight. And also just, I think Royval, sadly, he's gonna have to need another win. So it's tough, man. It's tough. And that's why I think Asakura, you know, being a new addition to the flyweight division is good, because this division, man, where we're just questioning, it's not even like questioning what we do with like Volk, Izzy, or Usman when they were champs. Like, we're just questioning like the depth of talent here, you know, because the prospects are on the rise, aren't quite there yet, and these guys who are at the very top like just keep beating the guys who are on the verge of getting title shots, like Albazi or Tyra, you know, and they're losing to like Royvals and Morenos, who have already fought combined like 5 or 6 times for the fucking belt against Pantoja. So it's just really tough, man. Obviously I'm exaggerating a bit, but it is tough to just find fresh matchups for Pantoja right now. I'm glad that he got to fight Asakura. I think it raised his stock a bit. Probably helped him a bit with the fans as well. Got another title defense, and I don't know, but the whole thing with flyweight, the whole thing with heavyweight, these two divisions are fucked, man. So I say Pantoja, give him Kara France next, but it's just so hard to try and figure out what to do in that division because things just are not played out yet, you know. I wish Pantoja could kind of just like stay champ, take him out of the picture for like 2 years, you know, put the flyweight division like the hyperbolic time chamber, have them fucking fight it out, and then once the division has figured itself out, you know, and you have clear new contenders or the ones on top have really proved themselves more than just like a one fight win streak, you know, because sadly this is at the point we're at. Then again, nothing against the competition of flyweight, like there are really skilled flyweights, whether in the top 15 or outside of it. I think it has some of the best prospects kind of on the rise right now. And the flyweights, man, they get absolutely put on wars, they can get good finishes. It's an overshit on division, don't get me wrong. So I'm behind the flyweights. I want them to fucking succeed, but it's just like, what do you do right now at the very top? What do you do at the heap, you know? Like, I guess you just got to run it back with Kara France. So finishing off this video, I don't have a fight for Ciryl Gane or Alexander Volkov, just because I just want to talk about what you're going to do with these guys. It's difficult because if Volkov won, you clearly could just give him the shot against Tom Aspinall next. But Volkov, it's not like he's getting any younger, man. This was a crucial fucking fight at this stage in his career, okay? And for him to lose a clear robbery, which Dana was pissed about. Volkov, look at the picture on your fucking screen, dude. Look at this face, all right? Look at Paddy Pimblett, brother, all right? It's absolutely ridiculous that a man has to question shit this hard, all right, for a fight that he just clearly won, you know? Gane, you know, don't get me wrong, he did have a couple moments, but he didn't look good in this fight, and he lost. And like I said in the build-up to this fight, and in my predictions video, like, Volkov, I believed, made the improvements in the time since these guys fought the first time, and was going to show it, you know? He introduced the grappling, and it worked out well for him, you know? He was piecing up Gane on the feet, he looked quick in there, and I just think it was a good win for Volkov, and it could have got him a 5-fight win streak, could have fought Aspinall, you know? But we're not getting that shit now. Now Volkov is going to have to fight somebody random, or going to have to fight down, or who knows what he's going to have to do, you know? And Gane is probably going to get to fight Aspinall either after Jones, or if Jones fucking retires and vacates, then Gane's next for the title. And it sucks, you know. You get that feeling in the air that they're kind of just making it seem like, oh well, we got to make Gane look good, because if Gane loses, it invalidates Jones, and we can't have that. And it's just, I know that the UFC can only control so much with the judging because it's more so on the commission, but it's just, what are we fucking doing, dude? Because this guy Volkov was at a crucial stage in his career, and now it's just, things aren't going to be looking good for him, man. You know, obviously he can bounce back, of course, and maybe the UFC will look out for him, you know, be like a Jose Aldo and Marlon Moraes thing where they just gave the title shot to Aldo anyways because everybody knew he won. So it's just, maybe it's something like that. Gane walked out the fucking cage, dude. And his coaches were going like, whoa, Gane won? Like, when it was announced. Because even they didn't believe. Even Gane himself didn't believe that he won the fight. It was that. And, you know, a lot of these guys, like even Paddy Pimblett, who I kind of have been hyping up. I say he's very underrated. I know that he lost to Gordon. But the thing about that Gordon fight is how he handled it was just fucking awful. Because Dana, fight to the night, Dana. Like, and everybody was just like, shut the fuck up. Like, it wasn't even one of that. Gane just accepted that he just had lost. He didn't even think that he was going to get his hand fucking raised. And so when he did, I mean, maybe, I don't even know why he left the cage. Maybe he just genuinely thought he lost. Maybe he just didn't want to do the interview. Maybe it was just an embarrassment thing. I don't fucking know, but this whole thing is ridiculous. Gane got exposed, man, and he lost that fight. I don't know what you do with either of these guys now, because if the winner, Volkov, won like he was supposed to, things would be a lot more clear on what to do here. You could give Gane like Pavlovich next, or maybe like a Rosenstruck, you know, something like that would have made sense, and Volkov gets the title shot. But no, now we have to just fucking, I don't even know what they're going to do. Good fucking luck. And you have Jones on top, so the whole division got even more confusing, as if it already wasn't enough. As if there already wasn't enough kind of bullshit going on at the top of the scene, at the title picture. Now we have more, because now even the number one contender is fucking questionable. So it's absolutely insane. So I don't know what you do with that. I didn't even know who to book these guys against, because the wrong winner won, if that makes sense. So I don't fucking know. So overall though, man, Jesus, I'm out of breath, dude. It's so fucking mental. But all right, so moving on. Anyways, just that's gonna be it for the fights I think you should make next for a lot of these guys at UFC 310. So thank you guys so very much for making it this far in the video, giving me y'all's time, help me reach 500 subscribers. I appreciate y'all a lot for that. So yeah, thank you guys so very much. All the Smoke MMA. Thank you guys so very much for tuning in. Let me know what you think of these matchups in the comments below. Are they good? Are they shit? What do you think? Who would you book these guys against? Or some of the fighters I didn't even talk about. What do you do with Sterling? Who do you think got robbed? Let me know in the comments below. So all the Smoke MMA, appreciate you guys.